Hello YouTube and welcome back to yet another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Gen 2 Catch-em-all speedrun, and specifically what comes into play when doing a Gen 2 Catch-em-all speedrun. My name is Cruel and I'm one of the 4 world record holders for the Gen 2 Catch-em-all co-op speedrun, along with IndySR, the plumber himself, and Zeta. Do let me know if you like this sort of content in the comments below, and let's get on with it. Let's start with the rules. Now the rules are fairly straightforward. First and foremost, we're only allowed to use one copy of every game. The Gen 2 Catch-em-all speedrun uses Pokemon Red, Blue, Gold, and Silver, and we're only ever allowed to use one copy of each game. We can have as many people participate in it, up to a maximum of 4, meaning 1 person per game, as well as people to help track which Pokemon we've got and whatnot. All National Dexes need to be completed. This includes the National Dex, or in general, the Dex from Gen 1, which means Red and Blue also need to complete their Dexes for this run to be valid. This means that by the end, you should have 150 Pokemon for Pokemon Red and for Pokemon Blue, and 249 Pokemon for Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver. Time starts on pressing new game and ends on obtaining the diploma. Now for the requirements for the diploma, the event Pokemon are not actually required, which means for this particular category, Mew and Celebi never need to be obtained. The game must be beaten, which is to say the any % glitchless requirement of the game needs to be completed. For Red and Blue, this means beating the champion and getting into the Hall of Fame. For Pokemon Gold and Silver, this means beating Red at the end of Mount Silver. And lastly, no glitches are allowed. Now with that all out of the way, let's go get into some version exclusives and some of the challenges you'll face along the way if you try this challenge. Let's start with the version exclusives. So Pokemon Red, Blue, Gold, and Silver each have a set of exclusives, as well as some Pokemon that are not obtainable at all. Let's start with Pokemon Red. The first one we can't get is the Sandshrew line. Sandshrew and Sandslash are only obtainable in Blue for this particular challenge. Next up, we have the Bellsprout line, the Meowth line, and the Ninetales line. These 4 Pokemon lines all need to be obtained within Pokemon Blue. Next up, we have Magmar and Pinsir. Well, both of those are also Blue exclusive. Pinsir only being able to be found in the Safari Zone or by buying it through the Celadon Casino, basically. Magmar only being obtainable in the mansion on Cinnabar. Now let's move on to Pokemon Blue. Blue, you cannot get the Arbok line, Oddish line, Mankey line, Arcanine line, Scyther line, and Electabuzz line. All of these are not obtainable in Pokemon Blue. We also have some Pokemon that are not obtainable in either. Outside of Mew, these are the 2 starter lines, by which I mean to say you can only get one of the starter lines when starting up the game. The other 2 will not be available once you've picked your once you've chosen your starter. Additionally, the fossil line also comes into play. You can only pick one of the 2 fossils, either Ammonite or Kabuto, and only that one can be used. This in total means that one of the games will actually have to be reset early on after trading over one of the starter lines so that you can actually get all 3 of the starters. Now let's jump into Gen 2. With Gold, we're starting with Ninetales and Meowth, which are unobtainable just like they were in Red. We also... I'm kind of going all over the place here. Let me make sure I get the next one. We also have the Leddiba line, the Delibird line, the Skarmory line, and the Donphan line. All of these Pokemon are not obtainable in Pokemon Gold. For Pokemon Silver, we have the Mankey line, the Arcanine line, Spinarak, Gligar, Ursaring, and Mantine. Now, just like in the Gen 1 games, there are actually some Pokemon that you cannot get at all over the course of this challenge. These include all of the Kanto starters, which need to be transferred from Red and Blue, 2 starter lines from Gold and Silver itself, both Kabuto and Ammonite. Aerodactyl is actually obtainable through an in-game trade, but Kabuto and Ammonite are not, and all of the Gen 1 legendaries, by which I mean Articuno, Moltres, Zapdos, and Mewtwo. Trading between these games is possible, and actually very heavily recommended. A lot of the Pokemons that are not obtainable in the Gen 2 games can easily be obtained in Gen 1, and can easily be transferred from there. Gen 2 also has the added bonus of being able to breed Pokemon, so you don't actually have to reset for an additional EV in, for example, Red and Blue. Additionally, some Pokemon might be easier to obtain in Gold and Silver than they are in Red and Blue. For example, Scyther and Pinsir are actually very easily catchable in the bug catching contest, which you need to do anyway. And the Tauros, which is a pain to get in Red and Blue if you are not using any RNG manipulation, is very easy to be obtained in Gold and Silver, as it can be found left of Ecruteak. Now let's go into some of the main challenges. So the Catch-em-all obviously has a few challenges that you'll face along the way, and things you have to overcome as you go through them. Right here, I'll be picking the 3 most significant challenges along the way. I will not be mentioning the catches that I mentioned earlier with Tauros, because the Safari Zone in Gen 1 really isn't that big an issue. Generally speaking, the catching in Gen 2, like the catching of all the Gen 2 Pokemon, takes a lot longer than it does in Gen 1, mainly because Gen 1 just doesn't have nearly as many Pokemon. Gen 2 having nearly 100 additional Pokemon that need to be registered means you're almost always going to be taking longer on it anyway, so the Gen 1 Pokemon usually aren't a problem. There are 3 challenges that come to mind, however, when we're talking about challenges in the Gen 2 catches specifically. First of all, there's the roamers. This goes Entei, Raikou, and Suicune, and Raikou actually specifically is a very challenging one. The roamers are not in static locations, and they're very difficult to find in general, and even if you found them, they tend to run immediately after you've even encountered them in the first place. Generally what we do for this is we use both of the Master Balls obtained in Gold and Silver to catch the 2 Pokemon, which only leaves 1 after that. Now, it is strongly recommended to use at least one of the Master Balls specifically for Raikou, as it's the fastest and it has Quick Attack, which means if you actually encounter it, even if you're faster, you will not get a chance to catch it unless it goes for a different move. So even if you try to attack it, it might even get a turn off, even if you're faster. The general strategy we use to catch the roamers, or rather the 3rd roamer, is by catching a Ghastly early on in the Sprout Tower during night, then leveling it up all the way until you get Haunter with the moves Hypnosis, Mean Look, Infuse Ray, and then a 3rd move of your choosing. Usually we'll go for something like Nightshade. This makes an ideal catching mon, because when you encounter a roamer, you can Mean Look at turn 1 to guarantee that its chances of running will be significantly lower. If a roamer is if it's Mean Looked, it only has a 25% chance to run through Roar, and any of the other moves will not actually allow it to run. On the 2nd turn, you can then Hypnosis to prevent it from actually doing anything, and on the 3rd turn, you can Confuse Ray it, so that if it wakes up, there's a chance it still won't get to attack, and you can Hypnosis it again. This usually gives you the biggest chance to actually catch one of the roamers, and makes it a little bit easier, although even then, just finding it is a challenge in and of itself. Now, luckily though, a level 39 Gengar is generally faster than any of the roamers, so after a trade, it makes it a really easy way to catch any of the Pokemon, because you can Repel Strat until you get it. The second challenge, and honestly equally notable as the roamers, is getting the Sunstone. The Sunstone is an item that you can only get in the Gen 2 games by winning the bug catching contest, and if you've ever done it in Gen 2, you will know that the bug catching contest is far from balanced. Generally speaking, it's recommended to catch either Pinsir or Scyther, as those have the biggest chance of winning, but even with a perfect Scyther or a perfect Pinsir, you're still only like 40% to win. This makes obtaining the Sunstone incredibly difficult, especially considering you need to do 2 of them, because you need a Sunstone for both Sunkern into Sunflora and Gloom into Blossom. The third and last challenge I want to mention are the Swarms. Swarms in Gen 2 tend to work rather weird. An easy way to trigger a swarm is by talking to whichever trainer gives you the phone number, and then going back to your mom and changing between daylight savings and not daylight savings until you finally get the call that there's a weird swarm happening. Even then, however, it can still sometimes be weird. In the current Gen 2 Catch-em-all world record, the Yanma swarm was supposed to be active, but then it wasn't, and we got very lucky in actually encountering one. Because without a swarm, those Pokemon tend to be just a 1% encounter. Sometimes you can repel strat for it. For example, with Meryl, with the correct repel strat, you can actually get it up to like 3%, but the odds of actually winning it are still actually finding it are still incredibly low. So with that, we've gone over the major things that go along into a Gen 2 Catch-em-all challenge. Generally speaking, it's recommended to do this with 4 people. 1 for Pokemon Gold, 1 for Silver, 1 for Red, and 1 for Blue. The current world record stands at 19 hours, 36 minutes, and 30 seconds, done by myself, IndySR, the plumber himself, and Zeta. The challenge in and of itself can be very daunting, and usually what we do is we use 4 game cubes, all linked together with 2 different game link cables to just try and trade as easily and as optimal as possible. Even then, however, it is still incredibly difficult to keep track of which Pokemon have been obtained and which ones haven't. So it's always recommended to have at least 1 tracker to keep an eye on which Pokemons are on which game, and especially which Pokemons have already been registered and where, so that you can trade as optimally as possible. Generally speaking, the Gen 1 games, after completing, are just used as a hub to be able to trade things to Gold and Silver, so you can optimally get everything there. I hope this gave you an idea as to what the Gen 2 Pokemon Catch-em-all challenge entails. If you liked it, do be sure to leave a like and leave a comment if you want to see more. The Gen 3 challenge and Gen 4 challenge have both been completed as well, and are at least equally interesting, if not more so, than Gen 1 challenge, or Gen 2 challenge. So it's definitely worth talking about if you guys are interested. And with that, I'm going to leave you guys at that, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and hope to see you guys back for the next video.